Well, good morning, everybody. How you going? It's Jonathan Laird here. I just thought I'd have a go at making one of these videos. It's obviously not a difficult thing to do these days, and so as one of the more mature age people online, I guess, I thought I'd try drawing on my experience and what I know about history and politics to try and speak into the situation with Donald Trump and the polarising effect of his election has had, and where I see things in the grand scheme of things. Um, the people think we've got turbulent times today, and indeed we have. But I have to say that when I was a kid growing up during the Vietnam War, it appeared like the world was on fire. The Cold War was in full tilt. There was, the 1967 Israeli war. There was the uprising, or Pinochet takeover in Chile in 1973. Vietnam continued to roll on seemingly without end. I would have to say that I grew up thinking that, in part, that war was a normal state for society. And further to that, there was, under the Cold War environment, there was the perpetual threat of nuclear war. And for the younger generation, there's the thing called the nuclear clock, or the atomic clock, where a group of world scientists make a judgment about how close the clock is getting to midnight being the hour when global nuclear Armageddon breaks out. And just recently they've talked about the clock again. To be honest, I haven't really heard the clock spoken about since before the fall of the Berlin Wall. It was that far back. But I do remember an era back during the Cold War, in the 80s, when they thought that the clock had reached a couple of minutes to midnight. It was that close. So, I genuinely grew up thinking that nuclear war was inevitable, and that the Soviet Union was the evil empire, and it of course coloured my thinking. Coincidentally, I've had a working career that's mostly been in the armed forces with defence, but that was partly, I guess, harkening back to my childhood experiences. But I just wanted to make the point, though, that scary times have been here before, many times. I mean, the 20th century, really. I mean, if you were like me, if you grew up in the last essentially 3 or 4 decades, particularly the last 3, 80s and 90s, the world was fairly peaceful and stable on the grand scheme of things. But if you wound back to, the earlier part of the 20th century, obviously the First World War came. People called it the Great War, the war to end all wars, and of course we now realise how wrong they were. Then came the Second World War. A lot of historians agree that, in fact, the Second World War was really a continuation of the First World War, and the Western powers learnt from the mistakes of the so-called peace that they won, and so they sought to bring together a much greater peace. And I think the world has enjoyed the fruits of that. So again, the point I'm wanting to make is that scary times have been, and they'll come again. And so I'd encourage you, just because it might look scary and unfamiliar, and it is, and I have to say, when you have the new tough talking, assertive, bold president that we have, particularly after the contrast, president we have in the United States, I should say, particularly after the contrast of the gentlemanly Barack Obama, it's frightening. Understand that. And when you mix together other things which complaints about his character, then I can understand why people really feel all at sea about this. But I'd encourage you to look beyond that. Don't allow your emotions to react. Be wary of the media whipping you up into a frenzy. I mean, that's what they like to do. It sells papers. Well, papers are going out of vogue, but you get my point. So, you know, this will pass. You know, things will settle. There's a breaking up of the old order. And whenever that occurs, it is scary and frightening and it makes you feel uncertain. But I'd encourage you to give things a chance to see where it goes. Because, can I just make the point gently, for every one person that is greatly dismayed by the current circumstances, there's another person that is pleased by it. So what does that tell us? Well, firstly, we shouldn't allow ourselves to fall into the trap of thinking that because that's where we're at and that's where they're at, that because of the strength of our emotional reaction, therefore we must make a judgment on the other person, on who they are, the quality of their values and convictions, their lack of understanding, or whatever it is, whatever label we want to put upon those people. We should refrain from that. It causes division, and it's not going to help. We need more than ever understanding, and a concept which is forgotten these days, which I think needs to be restored, needs to be returned to the people, is the concept of citizenship. What does it mean to be a citizen? And I'm not just talking about being a citizen of Australia. I'm talking about being a citizen of the USA, Canada, Chile, Argentina, Congo, England, France, Russia, China, Vietnam. The principle is the same. What is citizenship? Well, in liberal Western democracies, it used to be when our governments and our leaders established our constitutions. Here in Australia, they federalised the state governments and made a federal government, a national government. They developed it under a constitution. And I know that the same in America, the USA, here in Australia, that our founding fathers scoured the globe looking for progressive ideas that ensured the strength and well-being of the people. One of those things, a cornerstone of that, was citizenship and what it means to be a citizen. Now, in this day and age, I think that what that is has largely been forgotten. And in essence, the citizen is the highest member of society. I'll say that again. The citizen is the highest member of society. It's not a policeman. It's not your local parliamentary representative. It's not your congressman. It's not the judge who might live down the road. It's not any of these valuable, important people. It's not the medical specialist. It's not the surgeon that saved your life. These are all valuable people. We need them all. But it's not them. No, the reason why the citizen, the individual, is important, excuse me, is because the citizen is the building block of the state, of a country. And when government remembers its place, which is to serve, and does not seek to dominate and usurp the rights of citizens, that's when freedom reigns supreme. The problem we have today is that in our highly connected, highly modernised, highly technological society, is that it's very easy for information to be controlled. And most of the world's major news services are owned by an elite. I don't need to get into that. I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of all that. But I'm just making the point that the power of the individual has been usurped. Our opinions, to such a great extent, are moulded through the media. There used to be a thing called citizen's arrest. And I mean, it probably still exists on the books in various countries. I think you can still make a citizen's arrest here in Australia if you're game. Obviously it's a risky proposition, but the point is that the citizen is a member of a society. The citizen has authority. The citizen has privileges as well. But the citizen is their brother's keeper. And so that's the reason why you have the citizen's arrest, is it was based on that principle. So I reiterate that the citizen is the highest member of society. Again, it's not the government. And it's not those who would think that they know what's best for us, whether they be in government or the media or on Facebook or whatever the case might be. So we need to recapture that. We need to be involved and engaged. And I think that the optimal way to do that is to, be smart. The Bible says to be wise as a serpent, yet gentle as doves. And, how do we do that? We need to be well read. We need to study. We need to find out things for ourselves. If you're curious about whatever it is that interests you, then go for it. Dig into it. It's if it's an area we're not interested in, then that's fine. Keep away from it. But obviously, we will respect and be prepared to defer to those who have made the effort to look into these things. Doesn't mean we trust blindly, because at the end of the day, we are responsible for our own decisions. But anyhow, I could go on, but at this point, I just want to encourage you that, this too shall pass, this time of uncertainty. But, I'd encourage you to be optimistic. And if you think that, you want to see a better world, then be part of that better world that you want to see. Because, we need to lose a mentality that it's going to be given to us. It's going to be handed to us on a plate. No. Each and every generation needs to write their own song, needs to tread their own walk. And, the 21st century, hey, look, it's still only young. Let's make it what we want it to be. But, I'll tell you that there's a group, a global power bloc, who would like to tell you how they think it should be. Okay, I'm sure they've got some great ideas. Even people who are extremely powerful, do desire some useful things, for sure, absolutely. You need to give credit where credit is due. But at the end of the day, we need to be smart, and we need to take hold of our own destinies and our own future. So we need to, in the right way, put government and media in its proper place, in its proper perspective. If we don't like the way society is going, then we need to speak up, obviously. But I think we need to do something differently. And that differently is looking to our neighbour, looking to our brother, seeking to understand, working together. In the West, we're all over rights and privileges. We have no trouble saying, it's my right. You can't tell me to do this, so on and so forth. And there's most definitely a place for that, and that's part of, a healthy personality and a healthy society. But the thing we're not so good on, and this is something that some certain Asian countries are much better at than we are, is talking with the same strength and vehemence about our responsibilities. There's no point in talking about rights and privileges unless at the same time, in the other hand, just as evenly weighted, we are prepared to talk about our responsibilities. Because, to go back to that citizenship thing, with privileges comes responsibilities. So when we assert our own personal rights, or even the rights of others, we need to think about the big picture. We need to think about what's in society's overall interests. I'm just making the point here that, fringe ideas, fringe and strange ideas are not necessarily bad, not by any stretch, because of course all ideas have their genesis. And if they're progressive, they will sound strange. I'm happy to make that, to acknowledge that. But I will say that, when we think about fringe ideas and privileges and rights, we also need to think about the responsibilities. What impact is this new idea going to have on society's health and well-being overall? Because that's just as important. It's a nonsense to suggest that one person's rights are more important than anything else. That is complete and utter codswallop. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. I understand that, if you're a minority, you're discriminated against, you're disenfranchised, you're marginalised and rejected. It's natural for you to want to react strongly. And, but, it's our responsibility to be there, to watch out for you, to be prepared to listen, to respond with understanding. And if you are indeed, disenfranchised or someone then to side with you and support you. That's our job. That's what citizenship is. It's being a healthy, contributing, responsible member of society. So we need to be responsible. And I think for our society to have a strong future, we really need to get a handle on this. What does it mean to be responsible? What does it mean to support society and continue to look at society's best interests? Well, I think a key part of this is not allowing a fringe idea or a fringe ideology or a fringe interest group to really firmly take hold of the reins and to guide the agenda in society. And that's a big problem here in Australia, because Australians are apathetic, we're passive, we sit back and we say, well, someone else will take care of that. Very often that doesn't occur. And so often in this country, we do have agendas being hijacked by fringe people, and it twists the dynamic of society. It's too late to complain about these new ideas which are being legislated once they're in. It's no point complaining then if back then, when the concept was being floated or developed, being discussed, you just ignored it because it was not convenient. There's no point crying over spilt milk after the fact. That just proves that, you are not engaged and not, if I may be so bold, assuming your full responsibilities as a citizen. So anyhow, where do we put all this in context as believers, as Christians? I have to say that in recent times, my understanding, perception of who I am as a Christian and of my God have been changing greatly. For the better, I do believe. But anyhow, that's for another time. Anyhow, I hope some of this speaks to you. I hope that some of it means something to you. Let me know what you think. Anyhow, I hope you have a great day. And remember, we're all here to have fun and to enjoy life and to get on and to make the best of things. And, you've got to focus on the glass being half full. So let's do that. For this day, the glass is most definitely half full. And let's indeed say it's overflowing. And it will be if we focus on the good things and don't overplay the negatives. Anyhow, have a great day. Bye.